Hey everybody, welcome back. My name is Average, and today we are doing another episode of our Python for Beginners series. This is part 3, and in the last video we covered variables, data types, basic arithmetic, and a little bit of some extras along the way. And in today's video, we are going to be taking what we know and expanding on it further. In today's video, we are going to be looking at a new data type. I'm also going to be increasing the font size, and hopefully that makes it a bit easier to read what's going on. So in today's episode, we are going to be taking a look at Booleans, also known as simply just bools. Now, what is a Boolean? A Boolean is literally either a true or a false. It can have either one of these two values, true or false. And in other terms, it could be a 0 or a 1, or it could be on, or it could be off. It basically means the exact same thing for every single way you want to portray a Boolean. And these are the only values a Boolean can be. It's either on, it's either off. There's no in between, there's nothing else. And so why would we want to use a Boolean? Well, we're going to be talking about that in a second, but first of all, let's create our first Boolean variable. So our variable is going to be called isAverage a good YouTuber? And I know that's a bit of a long variable, so we're going to give it a value of true. And then we're going to be covering something else, something new as well, and these are called if statements. So let's begin by writing our first if statement, which we can do by writing simply just if. And after our if keyword, we have to give it an expression. So we can say 1 is more than 2. And this expression is always going to be not true. 1 is never more than 2. So what goes on inside of here will never run. So if we do print hello world and let's run this, as you can see, nothing runs. However, if we did if 1 is less than 2 and we ran, we will see hello world in the terminal. So this is a way of checking for conditions. All you have to do is write if and give it an expression or a condition. So if I wanted to, we could put isAverage a good YouTuber and plop it right inside of there. And since it's always going to be true, hello world will always print. Now, if I change our Boolean to a false value, you'll notice that it no longer prints to the console. And this is because isAverage a good YouTuber is not true anymore. Let's change our message to be more representative of what's going on. So average is a good YouTuber is now what's going to get ran if average is a good YouTuber, if this is set to true. Now, we can also use, in case this is false and we want another behavior to occur if this isn't true, we can use the else keyword. Basically, a way you can conceptualize this is, let's say we have a light switch, okay? And forgive my poor drawing, I'm really bad at drawing. We're gonna have our little light switch. It's gonna be flipped down. Now, typically, this means that the light switch is off. So in this case, if we had a variable, the light variable, that says light, would be set to false, right? Okay. Now what would happen if we flicked the switch up and turned it on? Now our light variable would be equal to true. So now that we have this concept of true and false, whether this switch is on or off, let's pretend that light still exists and it has a state of true. Now, our if statement, if you think about it, is like the wire between the switch and a light bulb. Pretend this is a light bulb. Okay, that's a good enough light bulb. So obviously, when the switch is on, there will be current going through the wire. And this is what our if statement would be. This is going to happen if light is equal to true, and the light bulb will turn on. Now, if the switch is off, aka our light variable is not true, no current will go through the wire, and the light switch won't work. However, we also have this else keyword. So where does that fit into play? You can think of this as if there was another wire, but this wire only worked if the light switch was off, and this powers something else completely different. Let's say this is, I don't know, an alarm, and it's now blaring because the light switch is off. If we were to turn this back to true, set it to true, this alarm would no longer be blaring and the light would turn back on. So hopefully that was a way I could conceptualize it. Essentially, it's doing different behaviors based on whether this variable is true or false. So if it's true, this will run. If it's false, this will run. So we can say average is a horrible YouTuber, and let's see what happens. Oops, sorry, you need to add a colon there. Sorry guys, at the end of each of these statements, whether it be an if or an else, you need to make sure you're doing a colon. And also make sure you are indenting your code. This code is outside of this scope. This code belongs to strictly this and nothing else. This code belongs to this as it's appended after the else. Let's give it another run, and it says average is a horrible YouTuber. Okay, so this is what happens when the light switch is off. Now let's turn the light switch on and see what happens. Now it says average is a good YouTuber. Wow. So we are going to be introducing a new concept, and that concept is user input. You know you love it. You know you want it. So user input, we know about output, right? Output basically means messages inside the console. Now, input is going to be a user entering their own message in the console. And using this input, we are going to have custom behavior. How do we do user input? Well, we can make a variable called user input, and we can say input. Now, this is another function, input, and usually we put parentheses because it is a function. Whenever we call a function, we're going to want to put parentheses. Inside of these parentheses, we can give it a prompt. So that is what it's going to ask the user. So we can say, is average a good YouTuber y/n. So is average a good YouTuber? Let's run the program and see what happens. We now get is average a good YouTuber y/n. Obviously, if we type y or n, it's not going to do anything because is average a good YouTuber is still true. However, now if we wanted to, we could print user input and we could get exactly what the user typed in. So we're going to type in y, and as you can see on a new line, it prints y because that's what the user typed in. We could also type in n. Yep, n. And we could also type whatever we want, and that will also get printed because it's simply just capturing exactly what the user is typing. User input is the line that the user typed up until they hit the enter key. Now, how exactly do we change this variable so that is average a good YouTuber gets determined by what the user says? Well, it's not too hard, and it requires the use of another if statement. So we can do if user input, and for this, we're going to be using two equals operators, and this is what's called the equality comparison operator. This checks if something on the left hand is exactly equal to whatever is on the right hand. So we could put in y, and we could say, is average a good YouTuber? And we'll say true. Now we're going to want to put is average a good YouTuber up here, and we're going to give it a value of false by default. And so what happens here is this reduces the need for us to declare an else with is average a good YouTuber equals false. We don't even need to write this anymore because we've already declared the variable up here. So that means if the user types anything other than y, then it will be false. So let's see if it works. So now let's type in n, average is a horrible YouTuber. Let's type in y, average is a good YouTuber. Awesome. I have one more thing to show you, and that is if we type in a capital Y, average will be a horrible YouTuber. And that is because we are comparing if user input is exactly a lowercase y. Well, what if we want it to be an uppercase y too? In this case, we can do or. And this is another keyword that you can add on to if statement expressions or Boolean expressions in general, which we'll get into in a later video. And essentially, this allows us to do another expression. So now, if either one of these are right, then it will run this code. So let's give that a shot. Let's type in a capital Y. Perfect. Average is a good YouTuber. And we could also do lowercase y, and that works. And then n will also work. What if we want to condense this a bit? What if we just want it to make one simple check? And so we can actually just type in user input dot lower. And this is also a function that is based off of strings, so only strings this will work with. We can do dot lower, and what this is going to do is convert user input, so whatever the user typed in, and convert it to lowercase. So now we only need to make the one check with a lowercase y, and so if we type in a capital Y, it'll say average is a good YouTuber because user input is now being converted to whatever the letter we enter is in lowercase. We can also do the same and just use upper instead, but now we have to compare it with an uppercase Y. So that's going to be everything for this video, guys. In today's episode, we looked at Booleans, which is a new data type. We looked at if statements along with chaining an else onto it. And we learned about grabbing user inputs, along with converting strings to lowercase and uppercase. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thank you for watching, and I hope you have a great day. Please subscribe, like, comment, and share, and stay tuned.